The forest of silent truths, even its name whispered a warning. Ancient trees, gnarled and impossibly tall, clawed at the sky. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, casting the forest floor in perpetual twilight. Here, silence reigned supreme. Not the peaceful quiet of nature, but a heavy, expectant hush. It pressed down on your ears, seeped into your bones. A weathered sign stood at the forest's edge. Its message, carved in a language long forgotten, was clear. Those who enter this domain forsake the spoken word. To break the silence is to invite misfortune. The forest demanded obedience. It thrived on the unspoken, on secrets kept and truths swallowed. Within its depths, the very air seemed to vibrate. It hummed with untold stories, with ancient magic and unspoken pleas. The forest listened. It always listened. And it remembered. He came upon the forest by accident, a lone traveler seeking nothing more than a path through the wilderness. He paused at the edge, a shiver crawling down his spine. The silence was unnerving. It felt less like an absence of sound and more like a presence in itself. He studied the weathered sign. Though he couldn't decipher the words, the meaning was clear. A vow of silence. He felt a prickle of unease, but the forest was the only way forward. He squared his shoulders, took a breath, and stepped across the threshold. The sunlight seemed to vanish as if swallowed by the trees. He plunged into the cool, damp embrace of the woods. The silence pressed in around him, heavy and absolute. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig seemed amplified, echoing in the stillness. He had walked for what felt like hours. The forest seemed endless, a labyrinth of shadows and silence. Then he heard it. A muffled sob, barely audible beneath the rustling leaves. He froze, listening. The sound came again, a choked cry of despair. He pushed through a thicket of ferns and stopped short. There, pinned beneath the trunk of a fallen tree, lay a young girl. Her eyes were wide with terror, her face contorted in pain. She saw him, and her eyes widened further. Her lips moved, forming silent words. "Help me," they pleaded. The traveler felt a surge of pity, a desperate urge to act, but the sign's warning echoed in his mind. To break the silence was to invite misfortune. But what misfortune could be worse than leaving this child to die alone? He stood frozen, caught between the unspoken law of the forest and the desperate plea in the girl's eyes. His heart pounded against his ribs. A cold sweat prickled his skin. He could walk away. He could convince himself it was not his place to interfere. The forest had its own rules. Who was he to break them? But the girl's silent cry echoed in his ears. Could he live with the guilt, with the knowledge that he could have helped but chose not to? His gaze flickered from the girl's terrified face to the oppressive silence of the woods. Time seemed to stretch, every second an eternity. He knew he had to make a choice, but which path was the right one? Which one would he be able to live with? Choice 1. The price of silence. He closes his eyes, steeling himself. He cannot risk unleashing the forest's wrath. With a heavy heart, he turns away. The girl's muffled sobs follow him, tearing at his resolve. He forces himself to walk on, the sound of her cries fading into the whispering silence of the woods. He does not look back. Choice 2. A voice in the darkness. He takes a deep breath, defying the oppressive silence. "Don't worry," he calls out, his voice a sharp crack in the stillness. "I am here to help." The forest seems to hold its breath. The air crackles with unseen energy, but he ignores it, focusing on the girl. With a grunt of effort, he manages to shift the fallen tree just enough for her to wriggle free. As she scrambles back, relief flooding her eyes, he feels a cold dread grip his heart. He has invited the forest's wrath. He can only hope he survives its retribution. The forest of silent truths holds its secrets close. It is a place of unspoken power, where even the whisper of a word can have dire consequences. The traveler's dilemma is a timeless one. Do we always adhere to the rules, even when they come at a terrible cost? Or is there a higher law, one that compels us to act, even when faced with unknown dangers? The forest offers no easy answers, it simply is. A silent testament to the choices we make and the echoes they leave behind. The question lingers, as heavy as the forest's silence. What would you have done?